Hi, I have a few minutes in between sessions. I wanted to give a quick informational video about the littles, or internal family systems language, exiles. And I know you've probably seen this. I've shown this before. This is like the heart of what an exile part can feel like. They are locked up. They are exiled from the rest of the system. They are carrying some unhealed traumas, unexpressed emotions, some stories. They're the ones holding most of the important trauma information. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time honoring the littles and giving you some information about my experience working with people who have dissociative issues, sometimes full DID, sometimes we're on a continuum. And just to give you a little info, and if you are a person that experiences very separate exiles, knowing that, of course, you're not alone. I keep wanting to give you that message. You're not alone with your dissociation. And it's so important to understand what it is, where it's coming from, and how to safely move forward and heal and feel like you, as the apparently normal part running the show, that you have a little bit more power and influence with your internal family system. So I wanted to give 4 points that would be information for anybody that might come in contact with one of your littles. So when I do these videos, it gets a little confusing for me because I'm a therapist. Is my audience a bunch of therapists? Is my audience family members of people that struggle with some of these issues? Am I talking to some clients that I actually have? And often I know I'm talking to people I don't even know that probably are struggling with dissociation. And that's the audience I'm really trying to reach with this video. Let's assume I don't know you at all, but you have some little parts that get activated sometimes, or maybe they've never said anything to anybody. What I want to share is 4 ways to interact with the parts that maybe you could share this video with your therapist or with a family member or with a friend, just in case you feel safe enough that this little might be allowed, this exile might be not exiled for a brief amount of time, where this part could come forward, share their story a little bit, feel connected, and just whatever that part may need in the moment. And it's very complicated, and no 2 parts are the same, and people's littles have all different kinds of purposes. Sometimes the little parts that come forward are simply little kids. Sometimes they're actually the little kids that think the trauma is still happening. So they do not realize that the trauma happened maybe 30 years ago, and sometimes they are terrified that the danger is going to happen again. So it's hard to just make a blanket statement what the littles need. But here's 4 safe bets if they appear. So the first one is don't assume. I remember a long time ago, I was working at an agency and I had no idea about dissociation. I was not trained in trauma. I did have my master's degree in social work, but I didn't have the skills that I have now. All this was getting trainings and education aside from my college education. But in this agency setting, I remember there was one attendee, a client, and this person would regularly switch from being a grown-up to being a crying little child. And I remember the clinicians that I was working with, the majority of the clinicians assumed that this person was just engaging in attention seeking and that they were faking it just to get attention or to get out of group or to be manipulative. And I'm sure sometimes that is the case. But I do remember there was a clinician. I remember this person taking the client outside of group, out into the hall, like it was a crisis, because it kind of was, and saying to the person, what do you need? What do you need to feel safe? And that I never forgot that clinician, I think, handled it well. That she contained the situation. Obviously the person was getting activated in the group, took the person out. I could hear because it was out in the hallway, but she did not assume, the clinician did not assume that this person was just faking it. And I encourage you to remember that. Don't assume that this person is pulling your leg or they can control this one bit. And that leads to the second point. Stay calm. I've also heard some horror stories from some of my clients that do dissociate, of other clinicians that have like panicked when they split from being, okay, I'm a grown up, I'm here in your office, to all of a sudden they were literally a little child, and the clinician got super anxious and like either abruptly ended the session or just made him feel very unsafe. So staying calm is very important, and along with calm is curious. So let's get a little more information here. Like, who, it's okay to ask. I ask this all the time. Who am I talking with right now? Because obviously the main person just stepped to the back and another part came forward, which takes me to my third point. Listen. It's okay to hold the space, observe, like you saw with my sunflower skills, observe, describe, participate. Use your sunflower skills. Listen to what the person's saying. And sometimes it's okay to ask a question and to get clarifying information. And the fourth point, which goes along with the being calm and listening, is reassure. So one thing I will typically say if I see that this little part is scared, like they think the abuser is in my house, I reassure them in my office house here. I reassure them that is over. They are gone. They can't hurt you anymore. And sometimes I'll say, I'll use myself as an example. Like, I don't act scared, huh? I know that person's not here. I know that there's no danger here right now. And so often the little will look around and with my energy, my co-regulation, they know that they are safe, at least in that moment. Sometimes the littles have very specific questions for me, and I'm just as candid as I can be in the realm of appropriate boundaries in the therapeutic setting. So for example, that movie Split that came out years ago, it's like a horror movie about dissociation, DID, and the grown-up was watching the trailer of there for another movie, and suddenly the trailer for Split came up, and that person's littles were terrified and wouldn't sleep. Like when my client was trying to sleep at night, the littles were terrified. They thought that there's a monster inside us because I saw it on the movie screen. And this person, when they came to their session with me, had so much dual awareness and so much control of the parts that they literally asked me, would you talk to the littles for me, because they don't believe me. And of course I agreed, and the person like switched. You could see them go to the back, and the whole energy, the whole demeanor changes. And it was like a little kid was in front of me asking about that movie trailer. And I reassured that no, that is not how this goes, and that was pretend. So I really reassured, just like I was talking to a 5-year-old little kid that was really scared. And then it was fine. That little exile was like, okay, can we play a game? Like, once they knew that they were safe, boop, let's go play. And I do find that very frequently with the littles, the little exile parts that come out. That's like the goal. We don't want them to go away. We want them to release their burdens, know the trauma is over, and feel safe in their own system. So that's what I have today. Please, if you have any requests for more information along this topic, please leave it in the comments, and I'll do my best to either address it in the comments or make a new video. So take good care of those littles.